It's Center State Bank Tuesday, and this is the Buddy Martin Show and Podcast.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
What if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening. Welcome to a Center State Bank Tuesday on the Buddy Martin Show and Podcast, if I can say it right. Good to be with you tonight. The rankings are in. Yes, the College Football Committee has declared their top 25, and as you no doubt know by now, the Florida Gators are just outside the top 10 at number 11. We'll talk about what that means, if anything, coming up momentarily as you join me here on the program tonight, where our guest will be Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart. Good week to have Tony on and talk about not just the rankings, but also the fact that we've got some big SEC games coming up this week. Certainly the one we've all been waiting for between the Bengal Tigers of LSU and the Crimson Tide of Alabama, among others. So we'll discuss those. We'll talk about the rankings. I can't get too excited about it, except to say I thought Florida might wind up 12th or 13th someplace, but they got a lot of respect. I'll tell you why in a moment. And I think it's a commentary, too, without making too much on it, that the loss of Georgia was not so terrible, despite the fact that it felt like Armageddon at the time. And so that puts that in perspective a little bit. I just was reminded once again of what a long, long season it is and how many twists and turns there are in it. Because, you know, there will be several more coming up. And right now, pretty much the Florida Gators are a little on schedule or ahead of where some of us thought, even the optimistic ones, thought they might be. So I'll say good evening. Coming up here in this next 55 minutes, we'll have David Moulton at 35 after the hour after Tony Barnhart. And I'll say hello to Greg Hunt. Good evening to you, Greg. And David and Paula, Donald Wilder. Paul, good evening to you. Nat Blaylock, the mayor of Newberry. Art, Kyle, Andy, Mike, Edward, David, and Brendan Martin is there telling you all to be sure to share out there in the Gator Nation Kingdom. So I'm sitting here getting ready to go on. I picked up my copy of the Tim Tebow book, which I got in Jacksonville. Myself and my friend Chad Rich and Danny Williams, we stood in line and got our free copy, got it signed on the front. I can't really read his signature, but obviously I'm most appreciative for it. Goes in my library, and I'll be thumbing through it tonight to see if I can find something about compassion. Compassion. It's a key word tonight. I'll tell you why later. Compassion. What does it mean? And do we have room for any of it? All right? Tell you what, lots of things going on today in sports world, not the least of which is the top 25, but also DJ Durkin has been retained, much to the hue and cry of critics like Paul Feinbaum and others, and up at Maryland. He takes blame for the dysfunctionality of the team, he and the athletic director, but by the same token, they're not going to fire him. I don't know enough about that case as much as some people do purport to know, because an awful lot of people claim to know things sometimes that don't really know what's going on. It always gets me when I hear people tell me, I don't like that guy because he's arrogant. He's arrogant? What? How do you know that? Do you know him? No, I don't know him. Have you been in his presence? No, I never have. Well, how do you say he's arrogant? Well, because of some of the things he says or people say he says. So you're going to take it third hand from somebody else rather than you draw your own perspective and you make your own judgments. But don't you think before you get ready to come down on somebody and judge them, you should kind of know more about who they are, what they did, and what their character is. We are quick to judge, aren't we? Yes, we are. So they judged the Florida Gators number 11. There's some interesting stats on those things. I think somebody tweeted it tonight that the Gators have a good chance to crack into the top 6. Is it 6 that make the New Year's Day Bowls? I believe it is. Certainly the top 8 by winning their games, because you look at who plays who, and you say number 6 has to play number 9, number 5 has to play number 10, as well as the winner of 6 and 9 has to play Alabama. So Alabama, of course, is favored to win both of those. So there's going to be some shakeups, and if you didn't hear it, I can't imagine that you didn't. But we'll start with the top 11. By the way, 5 SEC teams in the top 11. 5. Let's start with the 11th team. Let's start with the 12th because it's a team people have talked about, UCF. UCF is 12th, Florida 11, Ohio State 10, Kentucky 9, Washington State, team I like a lot. By the way, Steve Spurrier Jr.'s son's coaching there, is 8, Oklahoma is 7, Georgia goes to 6, then Michigan, a team I really want to see how good they are. They got a few games to play, including Ohio State. Notre Dame is 4, no surprise. LSU 3, no surprise. Clemson 2, and of course, no surprise that Alabama is number 1. So there you go. I like Derek Tyson's tweet on that. This tells you about the value of the games you've won and why you're positioned in the committee's eyes where you are, like Florida being number 11. Derek Tyson, formerly of ESPN, a friend of ours who used to work together with. It says Florida beat the number 3 team and lost to the number 6 and 9. Forget the results. They played 3 top 10 teams. Good point. Certainly for sure. That is true. So those of us have a look at your standings, your rankings, etc., which don't mean a whole lot right now, but something to keep an eye on as we go and take a quick break, and we'll go to our first phone call, Tony Barnhart, after these messages.
No one ever plans a car accident. Having a plan after you've been in one, however, can make a world of difference. Daniel L. Hightower has been fighting for accident victim justice in Ocala and statewide since 1976. After meeting with Dan and his team, you'll know your case matters, that you matter, and that Dan will fight hard to get you just results. If you've been severely injured through no fault of your own by a careless or reckless driver, you need Daniel L. Hightower.
Since 1976, Mr. College Football Tony Barnhart joins us momentarily to discuss the college football picture and this week's SEC games, which are top notch, especially with these teams being ranked as they are. He joins us now from Atlanta, Georgia. He's Mr. College Football Tony Barnhart. Good evening, Tony.
Good evening, Brother Martin.
I trust you were watching on TV as they rolled out the top 25. And there were any surprises for you? Was it about what you expected?
There were 2. One was I was surprised and pleased that the committee put LSU ahead of Notre Dame. I thought that was right. I just didn't think the committee would pull the trigger on that. So that was number 1. Number 2, I was stunned that Washington State was at number 8, given their non-conference schedule. But other than that, I was fine with it. And the neat thing is I think everybody in the top 6 basically controls their own destiny if they win out. So I think November is going to be a lot of fun.
Tony, were you a little surprised Florida was 11?
No, I think people who saw Florida play LSU, who saw Florida play Georgia, except for the turnovers, like what the Gators have done. So I think they deserve to be among the best 2-loss teams. So I was not surprised by that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Tony, Talk to me about the game on Saturday. I saw you at the press box. You and your buddy Vern Lundquist had a nice chat there. And that game was, I give Georgia a lot of credit for delivering in the final quarter as it had to do to win the game. But I think it's also a statement that how Florida has come when the game is still close with 10 minutes to play, despite the hole they dug in the first quarter and the 3 turnovers. But give me your assessment. Maybe I'm looking at it through orange and blue glasses.
No, I was very impressed. Particularly, there was a stretch in the second quarter. I thought Dan Mullen was just having a great day with the play calling. But what you learned about the game was that about Florida was that they're very well coached. They're really maximizing the talent that they have, but they're not good enough to overcome 3 turnovers against a good team.
Mm-hmm.
And to me that was the difference in the game. The turnovers allowed Georgia to get out front 10-0. I thought Florida did a great job of fighting back and taking the lead early in the second half. But Georgia did. And the other thing was Jake Fromm played his most complete game for Georgia of the season and really made things happen on third down. And that was always going to be the key.
And he answered a big question. I know that he played well at times last year, but when the game is on the line and they need him to help win the game, can he do it? And the drive he put together with, he threw 4 completions in a row to Nauta? Didn't he have 4 in a row? Completions.
Right before the half.
That was impressive. And then, of course, at the end, when he had to have the big one, he got it. And I think he answered the bell on all counts there. And, and I'm not going to say this was the reason, but the fact that Florida's best defensive back went down early in the game, that didn't help any. But by the same token, I take nothing from Jake Fromm, who I think showed us that he has the ability to play big-time quarterback for a big-time team.
Well, and it put an end to the speculation about is Fromm the guy. Justin Fields did not play in the game. Why? Because Fromm was playing so well, and everybody on the Georgia sideline understood that.
A lot of people surprised that Emory Jones did play in the game and Justin Fields didn't. Were you expecting Fields to take the field at some point?
I thought if Georgia got behind by, a touchdown, 10 points or something like that, they would need some kind of energy, some kind of lift. But for the most part, like we said, Georgia got up 10-0 because of the turnovers, and they were never in danger they never really got behind enough to where they needed the spark. And again, Fromm was playing well.
Yes. Yet I think there is a difference, still a gap between Alabama and the rest of the field, including Georgia. How much of a gap is that?
Georgia has closed the gap a little bit, but Alabama, with where they're playing offense, it's just everybody has understood over the years that if you do a couple of things, if you have a hot quarterback, if Alabama commits some turnovers, then you've got a chance to beat them. What's changed is that now they're going to score 40 on you, and that has not been part of our thinking. So I think the gap is still pretty significant, and I think we're going to find out a lot about it Saturday night when they go to LSU.
We're going to get into those games because this is a big weekend. But would it be correct to say that Georgia is to Alabama about what Florida is to Georgia?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the team that's, Florida looks at Georgia and says, "Look, we're behind in terms of recruiting and all that because of where our program has been the last couple of years. But we know where we have to go, and it's Georgia. All right. Well, Georgia looks at Alabama and says, we're in good shape over here in the SEC East. We've recruited well, but to get where we want to go is Alabama. Okay, a team that can do it year in and year out and be in the discussion for the national championship on a fairly consistent basis. So I think that analogy is a good one.
Yeah. All right. So the Cinderella story remains the Cinderella story. And you got to feel good for the people in Kentucky. They waited for a long time. I talked to a friend of mine today. You know him, one of the really great writers in our business, I say our business. I still feel like I'm a newspaper wretch. And it's Dave Kendrick. And remember him when he worked in Atlanta. And
one of the best.
One of the very best. Just won the Dan Jenkins Award. He's semi-retired, although he's still writing some. And he hasn't followed Kentucky football in a long time. I mean, a long time. He's been up more with basketball because every Kentuckian is always going to play, although Dave, I think, was born in Illinois, is going to follow basketball. And I asked him about the program, and he said, I don't know a whole lot about it. He said, but no, they got a pretty good team, and then he knows about the running back and the quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a brand new thing for a lot of people, including people who followed. He said the last time that Kentucky had meaningful snaps in football was Fran Kersey days, even before your time. I remember Fran because he coached at Miami and Tampa as well. So what is it like for the league to have a Kentucky show up on the radar now? And, of course, Georgia's got maybe a test on Saturday in this game. What are your take on that?
Well, Kentucky, buddy, and I wrote this earlier this year when they got on a nice little roll. Kentucky is Exhibit A for anybody who's trying to build a program. You go out and you hire the right coach. Then you invest in facilities. Kentucky spent $200 million in upgrades to Commonwealth Stadium and building their own football office complex. All right, $200 million. Then they were patient. There were people who wanted to get rid of Mark Stoops about his fourth year when they were struggling a little bit, but now they're going to go to their third straight bowl. So I think it's good for the conference to have somebody else in the mix. And think about what that situation is going to be like Saturday in Lexington. Biggest football game that's ever been played at the University of Kentucky. And they got a chance to do something they've never done before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. How do you size that game up? Every time you think you got Kentucky figured out, they come up with something, and they benefit from a call, which I want to get into a little bit, and the last second against Missouri. But it seems like things are going the way of Mark Stoops. And this team, they're very good on defense. They got, I think, an All-American linebacker and probably an All-American running back, in my opinion. So size up this game against Georgia.
Well, the key is the way that Kentucky wins is they run the football. And Kirby Smart said Saturday, he said after the game on Saturday, he said he was still concerned about his run defense. But what Kentucky has to do is to run the ball, shorten the game, which is what they've done against a number of teams, and then turn it over to their defense to make big plays. I mean, you were talking about Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. I had a chance to talk to Josh tonight. This kid is an incredible story. Where he came from a 2-star recruit out of New Jersey to be an All-American and a first-round draft choice. So I think the key is, can Kentucky run the ball, and can they throw it well enough, which they did against Missouri? Can Terry Wilson throw it well enough to get some points on the board? I think Georgia's going to win the game, but Kentucky's got to stick with its formula. And this is a veteran team. They've got 17 seniors on their 2 deep, offense and defense. And that kind of team kind of sticks together, and that's a big part of who they are.
Yes, for sure. All right, so let's take a look at some games on Saturday. And some of these games that we just talked about. Well, we talked about 2 of them. Let's break down LSU and Alabama. It's a game where Alabama has won in so-called Death Valley. I know there's 2 of them, as Spurrier says. Alabama has had quite a bit of luck. I say good fortune there. Almost 2 touchdown favors over LSU. Is Alabama, and here's the thing about it. How do we even judge Alabama when they haven't played a complete game yet? It's just hard to know, right?
We don't know. All we know is they get off to a fast start. They they rip your heart out early, and you spend the rest of the day trying to catch up, which nobody's been able to do. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere at night, which it always is. LSU has had a knack. They were very impressive against Georgia a couple of weeks ago. What LSU has to do, buddy, I remember talking to basketball coaches who would say, look, We play the first half of our basketball game to get to the second half. And that, to me, that's what LSU has to do. They're going to be without their best player for a half. And if I'm Ed Orgeron, I'm telling my guys, look, let's hang in there. Don't get beat deep. Don't give them the big play. Lock up. Keep everything in front of you. We're playing the first half to get to the second half, and that's when we get our best player back.
Yeah.
And if they can do that and get it into the third quarter and put some pressure on Alabama, then they got a chance. But if they don't, if Alabama jumps out to a 14, 17, 20-point lead early on, guess what? It's going to get out of hand, and they're going to blow them out.
Are we just trying to talk ourselves into this being a competitive game? Because let's be honest, based on what we've seen, really, a team Florida beat. Not that there's anything bad about Florida, but, I mean, this is Team Florida. And Alabama would certainly beat Florida without question, at least by 2 touchdowns. So I'm thinking, why are we even talking about this? Tua, if he's on, by the way, he might be as good a quarterback who ever played in the SEC, based on the small sample that we've seen. Are we talking ourselves into something that just isn't going to happen?
Well, that's the reason that we play these games, okay? Because we are surprised. Every Saturday there's a shocker out there. I think Alabama's going to win. I think Alabama's going to win by double digits. But I know going on the road and playing in this league, and if something goes wrong and Tua makes a couple of mistakes, then all of a sudden it's a different ballgame. But no, I think Alabama's going to win. I think they're going to win by double digits.
And you've seen a few of these games, so you would know that, I know. I'm looking at the SEC schedule on the Lions right now, and I've got them up on my screen. And I mean, this is quite a lineup. We just mentioned LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, and even Missouri at Florida homecoming. The one that Florida being a 6-point favorite in that game. And there's a game we thought would have a lot more implications earlier in the year. Texas A&M at Auburn. Boy,
yep.
That's kind of turned out to be a dud, hasn't it, somewhat?
Well, Texas A&M losing to Mississippi State just absolutely shocked me last week. Now, the bookies knew something that we didn't know, but, that's always the case. But I was stunned. And, I thought when we got to the this point of the year that would be a huge game. And now Auburn's just trying to finish out the string and see what happens with Gus Malzahn.
Apparently the bookies didn't know what was going on with Kentucky because they had Kentucky at 7-point underdog, and I said if I had enough more money I could mortgage my house, I'd put it all on Kentucky in that game, and it turned out that way. But they had to come back late to do it. So, but you're right. Usually when the bookies know something, it's reflected in the line. And finally, South Carolina at Ole Miss just doesn't mean much, and all of a sudden. South Carolina will's gone to scramble to pull out a respectable season there.
Yeah, I was with the group that picked them to finish second. They've had some tough wins, they've had some tough losses, but they need to finish. They've got to go, on the road. They're going to play at Ole Miss and at Florida. And I kept looking at that schedule. I said, man, those are going to be tough at the end of the season, having to go on the road, play back-to-back games. That's tough.
Well, let me just say this, and I'll let you go. I know you've had a long day, and I appreciate you taking the time tonight to be with you, Tony. First of all, I want to say looking forward to next week when you'll be here in Ocala, speaking to the Ocala Quarterback Club. The club is looking forward to it as well. Good group of folks. You follow Pat Dooley, who's on Wednesday night. You should handle that okay. And you'll regale us with a few stories about, the Kentucky-Georgia game. You'll be bringing some with you when you come. So look forward to having you there. And lastly, I don't get in too much of stories about officials. I just think it's counterproductive. I don't really write about them, talk about them that much. But I've seen a couple of things that have been bothersome to me. And I want you to check me to see, am I getting too old and cranky, or are these things that we should be concerned about? And I have a couple of good friends, at least one good friend, who's a former official. And we have discussions. He educates me. But when I see calls, and I blame this on not just the calls, but the rules as well. When I see rules like what I saw with the C.J. McWilliams penalty, and when Georgia was driving in a crucial situation, and McWilliams had no knee pads or whatever, his pants, and I hate those pants, they're like yoga pants, pulled up over his knees, and he was told to go off the field, and his coach, looking at it, not knowing what was going on, no one apparently told Mullen, he looks at it and thinks, this guy's already a backup. Am I going to put a backup to a backup in there right now? And he waves, go back on the field. He didn't know what was happening. He goes back on the field. Mullen doesn't want to call timeout. The officials don't have equipment timeout. And they give him a 5-yard penalty for the delay of game. Now, that's just, that didn't cost Florida the game. I'm not saying, if it had been again, Georgia had been the same thing, Why can't they get that right? You say, well, the guy didn't have the right equipment. Yeah, I get it. I don't see that call very often. And I wonder why I see it called in a situation like that. It seemed like a petty time to call it.
Well, the thing is, buddy, I can only share with you the conversations I had with officials, and this was they were told before the season start, we've got to clean this part of it up because guys are running around without pads on their knees, and somebody's going to blow out a knee. And so everybody was told before the season start, when we see this, we're going to call it. We're going to send you off the field. And so I haven't seen it called that much because I figured the word got through to everybody. So I'm just telling you the conversations I had with
I hear
officials.
You. Well,
and they can't. And if they buddy, I'm telling you, if they let it go, if it happens and they let it, like if they had not enforced the rule, guess what? You're going to sit next week.
But McWilliams had already been on the field quite a while, and the timing of the call. And look, I get it, but here's the thing. Holding could be called almost every play. There's a reason they don't call it every play. It's called judgment. And so, to me, that was not a good judgment. If that's a rule, that's a rule. And certainly, there should be a penalty for it. Unfortunately, there was lack of communication between the coach and the official and the player, etc., whatever. And it turned out to give him a first down and, Georgia break there. I say that, and then I bring up the other thing. I've told my official friend this, too, by the way. I'm not going to argue things like the pass interference call. I don't know whether it was pass interference or not. The one that Mullen went ballistic about. 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties he's got now in 3 games. I'm still kind of upset about the Vanderbilt call. I think you and I talked about that one, about the 2 coaches, the offsetting fouls, quote-unquote, supposedly, in basketball, and the unsportsmanlike conducts, which cost Florida a player. That's just a bad rule, the way it's written. And so, anyway, I just want to express it to someone who's been around a few years. I'm sure I'll get no sympathy, and maybe I'll get enlightened. I just don't understand it. And I'm just sort of trying to, I guess I'm venting a little bit. And so forgive me for that. But as a whole, the officials do a good job, although the SEC officials have been under criticism a lot this year. And as I say, I've got good friends. I've got one good friend who's an official. Anyway, just weighing in on it, Tony. And I look forward to seeing you here in Ocala, and enjoyed seeing you in Jacksonville. And it seemed like an especially good year for Florida, Georgia, or Georgia, Florida, however you say it.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to have that game and have both teams have a lot on the line. That's when the rivalries are really fun. Like
the good old days, right?
Exactly.
Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. Thanks, Tony.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All righty. Tony Barnhart is one of the best. Always joy having him on. I'm going to tell you about a couple other things here at the moment, if I may. Let's get back to, it's on the screen. Let me tell you about Center State Bank, which you see in my top left-hand side. They're a sponsor, of course, of the Tuesday show. They're sponsors of the program. They believe in the core values in this community, and they put effort into it to make sure people know they're about their core values. They put them right up there for you to see. They believe in long-term horizons for their financial deals for world-class service. They believe in relationship banking. Their markets are locally driven, and they are big on faith and family. Center State Bank is really one of the biggest banks in Florida, the 7th biggest, but there are groups all over the state. 82 locations to serve you in 30 Florida counties. And of course, the Gainesville Ocala area is served heavily by them, and my bank is right here on the screen. It's the beautiful building out on Silver Springs Boulevard. It looks like something from Gone with the Wind. Gorgeous building. You feel at home when you go in there. And the second floor is a beautiful art gallery, which the community has used for a lot of functions, including our Ocala Quarterback Club and our preseason membership drive. So if you want to know about banking, you want to know about community service, you want to know about chocolate chip cookies they got, which are great down there, go try them out. You can go online, by the way, and find out for the one nearest you to centerstatebank.com. In Ocala, located on Silver Springs Boulevard, call at 352-368-6800. And it's Center State Bank, centered on community and customer service. So there you have that. I want to, while I'm here, get back to Star Medical Research. Very proud of this program they're involved in, and this is a company that, again, involved in the community. All of what I do is about my community, by the way. And this is a Brian Maurer. What a game he had Friday night from Westport. You can see it right there on your screen. He was 35 for 61, 457 yards, 6 touchdowns against Denellen High School. And they finished the season with Marion County's single passing yards record and career passing yards. Brian Maurer, he's playing for a team that's having a hard time getting the W's, but he's certainly done his part. He's committed to Tennessee right now. Who knows if that might change or not, but congratulations to Brian Maurer, the Star of the Week in the Scott Bradley Trophy race. And, of course, Star is a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility located in Ocala with cutting-edge clinical research and the trials in Ocala in areas in such things as Alzheimer's and psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, fibromyalgia, along with many other conditions that affect our community. You can go online and check them out if you want to be involved in some of these trials, by the way. You can do that. Call 352-629-5800 or go online at renstar.net and find out what they mean when they say Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Okay, coming up in just a moment, we'll have David Moulton. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to dial him up right now. We'll tell you also about the Ocala Quarterback Club. They had a terrific time tonight with the group there, folks working on a project for the Scott Bradley Trophy, which we're really, really, really thrilled about. And there's 2 people who support the Quarterback Club. Danny Williams on your right, Danny Williams Appraisal, Dr. Frank Cannon, Ocala Orthopedic. They support our marketing program. They support many of the things we do, including the Scott Brantley Trophy. And we're very proud of what we do there. And we thank both Dr. Cannon and Mr. Williams for that. And by the way, speaking of the Scott Brantley Trophy, you'll learn more about this as we go along. This is an event that's going to take place here in March or April, and we have all these players now. We've been scouting for the last few months, and Scott Brantley, the trophy, will be awarded to the player judged as the best player, scholar, citizen, and leader in the community, and he will be awarded this prestigious award for the first time ever. So pay attention. We'll talk to you more about that a little bit later on and tell you about why this is important. It's great that we're embracing all aspects of football, high school, college, pro. Of course, Scott was a great Buck at Tampa Bay for 10 years. He was also a Gator. He would have made All-American in his senior year except for the fact that he had a head injury and had to sit out. And so Scott is revered as one of the great players in high school football because his team, Ocala Forest, actually won the state championship 2 straight years, and that's never happened around here that I know of, and it's something special. So, Scott Bradley Trophy is going to be a prestigious thing for somebody to earn at the end of this year. So, speaking of prestige, we had a chance to talk to the prestigious David Moulton. Now, I was glad to meet my friend David and see all the greats are all there. Tony Barnhart was there, along with talking to David and up on Vern Lundquist, and it was a nice little chat. Scott Carter mentioned he happened to pass by and hear some stories being told. And with that, I'll say good evening to David Moulton. Hi, David.
Buddy, how are you? Yeah, you and I had good seats for a couple of war stories there.
Yes, we did, didn't we? Yeah, it was good to see Vern up and about, and he and Lauren Smith together sitting in the press box. It's always a good day when I can see people like that around football, college football. So, well, it turned out kind of like you thought it might, the game on Saturday. Florida played pretty well, except for the mistakes and turnovers in the first three quarters, and still had a chance to win the game. That's all you could ask. And then when it came down to it, there were reasons for this, but let's just say that Georgia delivered, and Fromm, I think, regained his stature as a starter, and he got the job done. We could say if and buts, and they're candy and nuts and all that sort of stuff. Starting losing C.J. Henderson didn't help things any at all for Florida, but give me your overall assessment of that game. David, you were there.
Well, I mean, Georgia's just better at this stage, which they should be. I mean, Kirby's had a 2-year head start on Dan. They should be ahead of Florida, and they are. And they have the better quarterback. And that was very apparent on Saturday. And this is not picking on number 13, but Fromm is better. And clearly, to me, there was one play call from Dan Mullen that showed just where he is at comfort-wise with Felipe Franks. It's a 12-point game, 8.5 minutes to go. It's 3rd and long. And I understand they ran this play on 3rd and long once before, and it got the first down. But Dan did not want Felipe throwing it downfield into coverage. Didn't trust him. He threw basically a flanker screen, which was incomplete, and they punted. And by the time they got the ball back, Georgia attacked another touchdown, and the game was over. And that's the difference in the programs right now. Georgia has more on offense than Florida. I don't think they have more on defense. Florida's pass rush is superior. I'll take Florida's defense up against Georgia's defense. I think it's pretty even. And, yeah, Florida was at a disadvantage in the game because they were playing with backup corners. And Georgia's receivers are better. And, buddy, I think we saw on full display the difference between the two programs right now. Georgia has difference makers on offense. And for as much as you have talked up skill players with me, and for as much as I have taken on the quarterback situation, Florida's guys are not there yet at quarterback and at receiver. They're not. And until they get there, it's difficult to envision them winning a game like this unless they win the turnover battle. And instead, they were, -3? I mean, it was remarkable, buddy. 12 minutes to go in this game. They're -3 in turnovers, and they're only down 6.
Yes.
It was remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing was, I think the goal line stand was epic. It will go down as one of the great goal line stands. Because if you really look at the film, there were 9 tries, counting all of them. Of course, there were 6 runs and inside the 1. And I mean, my goodness, Zuniga should have made All-American on one goal line stand. He was, and others, Ankrum, etc. But I want to say that I want to say that you made the right point, which is, this is not a criticism of Felipe. He's not a 5-star quarterback. We know that. He's the best Florida has. I don't put it on his – I don't blame him for the loss. No. I think he could have maybe won it. But here's the deal. If you really are honest about it and you look at the teams that are challenging for the elite positions, you look at Alabama and Tua, you look at Georgia and Fromm, and even to a certain extent, you look at Burrow and LSU. Those are the people. You have to have that really almost elite quarterback to have a chance to win. And I think that's what you're saying. While he may be a good player who's getting better, he's not an elite quarterback.
Well, and I'm not trying to be harsh here. He's not yet a good player. He's an average player. If he gets to be a good player, then look out, because he's going to have more talent around him than he has right now. I mean, Dan's just begun, but he's not a good player. He's not accurate enough. He's not consistent enough. He's much closer to a 50% passer than he is a 60+% passer. He doesn't have much of an intermediate passing game. Throws a very nice deep ball. He's got great arm strength. I mean, that seam pass for the touchdown to give him the lead. I mean,
right on the screws. Right on the screws. Yeah.
I mean, that's an NFL caliber
big time throw. Yeah.
That was a gorgeous throw, and he looks the safety off and holds him to create the space to throw it through that window. I mean, and that's why you can see where not Dan and the coaching staff and Gator fans are like, man, if you can make that play, then, what about the 12 others in and around that? And the problem is at some point you're going to have to make a decision. Is it later on this year in which you decide to give the freshmen a couple of games after you're done with Missouri and South Carolina? Do you turn it over to the freshmen and let them swim in the deep end for a little bit? Or are you going to keep trying to build up number 13 heading into next year? So, Dan's got a big decision coming up at quarterback, but not for another couple of weeks.
Yes. Let's talk about this weekend's games. We keep hearing this commentary about how LSU is going to be able to be competitive. LSU with the right break, if they could play the first half until Devin White gets on the field and hold on, that they got a shot. They got him in Baton Rouge. And yet, if we really are honest with ourselves and look at this game and say, first of all, you can't make comparisons like this, I know. But Florida beat LSU, okay? Let's just say that. We don't even know how good Alabama is. Alabama would beat Florida by at least probably 3 touchdowns, maybe 2-3 touchdowns easily. There is no way LSU beats Alabama. So and we haven't even seen Alabama play a full game yet. And we don't even know how good Tua could be if he played 4 quarters. So I don't know. I guess are we trying to delude ourselves into thinking this is going to be a big showdown?
Well, I think we as fans are hoping that somebody will be able to give Alabama a game. And this is the first team in which you can legitimately muster up a case. But I thought we saw a couple of weeks ago, buddy, in West Lafayette, Indiana, that every now and then there are these special nights. There are these moments where stuff happens. And I think since it's a Saturday night in Death Valley, that not just the LSU faithful, but certain college football fans are saying, every now and then you get the right night and you get the right situation where a team is just good enough and they've got maybe a matchup or two where if things start to come together, you can see the snowball coming. And that's what I think people are hoping for. But, buddy, Alabama has scored a touchdown on their first drive of every game they've played this year.
Of course, they haven't played anybody that good. Let's be honest about that. Their schedule.
But they've got 4 first or second round picks between 3 wide receivers and a quarterback.
Well, they got the players on offense.
Exactly. And so, to me, it's like fighting Mike Tyson in 1988. Can you survive the first round? Mm-hmm. Can we just start there?
Survive in advance,
keep them, settle for a field goal in the first drive. It'll feel like a win. And then work your way into the middle rounds, which for LSU is to try to get to halftime in which they will get a big emotional surge when Devin White becomes eligible. Mm-hmm. Buddy, I did a game, the Iron Bowl in 2010. In which Alabama was really taking it to Auburn. It was 24-7 at the half. And Nick Fairley had and I forget the player's name, but he was a defensive tackle who lined up next to him, and the two of them were a handful. And Alabama was struggling with Fairley, and they were double-teaming him. Well, the guy next to him was suspended for the first half because of something that happened the week before. When he came into the game in the third quarter, an Alabama team would put 24 points on the board and 300 yards of offense struggled to put a field goal up on the board and about 80 yards of offense in the second half. And I think that also fits into the narrative. If LSU can just be down within 10 at the half, and then all of a sudden Devin White comes, and that'll add an element to their defense. And the other thing that hasn't happened yet, Alabama hasn't made any mistakes. And if they've made some, they haven't been in a pressure situation where it cost them. Alabama hasn't been in a situation yet where all of a sudden they turn and they go, oh, blank. And I think we're all just waiting to see. You know it's going to happen at some point. I mean, even the greatest of teams have the one game and one moment that they look back on and go, whew, that got a little dicey. And so we're wondering, is it going to be this week? Is it going to be the Iron Bowl? Is it going to be Atlanta? Is it going to be in the playoff? You figure it's got to happen at some point. And now we see whether or not it can happen Saturday night. But I think it's like fighting Tyson in 88 and 89. Can you hang around? Can you make it a fight? Can we see whether or not Alabama has stamina and a chin? We think they do, but quite frankly, we don't know.
Yeah, you're right about Tyson. You just don't know what you hit him in the mouth one time. They had not been hit in the mouth. So it's hard to say. Let's take a look at the tonight's rankings, although I don't mean that much. I do think Florida came out pretty good being 11th. And when you think, well, think about it. I mean, but on the other hand, look at who they played. They played 3 top 10 teams, and they beat one of them. And you start looking around, think, well, maybe they do deserve. That's a little bit of a commentary on the fact that the loss to Georgia wasn't that bad for them. And it's also who they got to put up there. Look, I have no illusions, but again, Florida's at 11. If they play well enough, they got a chance to be there on New Year's Day. Now, there's a long way to go yet. They got to beat Missouri. But I think from that standpoint, it worked out fine. The rest of it's pretty pedestrian. I mean, I can't argue with Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan. I see nothing there. It's all going to take care of itself anyway, isn't it?
Yes, I think Oklahoma's probably a little eyebrow raised. They probably think they should be 1 or 2 spots higher. I think Notre Dame's wondering why are they behind LSU, but it really doesn't matter. I think UCF is a little miffed, certainly being behind Florida with 2 losses. But I thought that's about where they were going to be. It is 5 spots higher than they were in the first poll a year ago. Do I think UCF can get in the top 4? No. But I think they can, I think they get close. If they keep winning, and obviously bunch of those teams are playing each other in front of them, you could see where they could systematically move into the 6 to 8 range by Thanksgiving.
11 teams, top 11, 5 SEC teams in the top 11, and there's a 3-loss team in the top 18 from the SEC. Mississippi State, 3-loss team, 18. What does that tell you? And Texas A&M is 2 spots down. They're a 3-loss team. So there's 2 3-loss SEC teams in the top 20.
Well, clearly the committee thinks the SEC is the best conference in the country, and it's not close because they have the highest-ranked unbeaten team, highest-ranked 1-loss team, highest-ranked 2-loss team, highest-ranked 3-loss team. So that's not a coincidence. So clearly the committee has spoken, and it does bring into play that I guess it's possible for the SEC to get 2 teams. Now, which team could Alabama lose to and when in order for it to happen? Would it be LSU because they're ranked 3rd? Would it be better off if it were to happen in Atlanta? But I do think that the committee, by their initial rankings of not just Alabama, but of all the others that I mentioned, is setting it up so that if it were to happen this year, that's the only conference it could happen for.
Yeah, and Notre Dame's going to skate. We all know that. Michigan's not going to necessarily skate. They got one more other loss to certainly be in Ohio State if they play decent. We know where Georgia stands. Oklahoma, that conference just doesn't have great standing. Washington State gets no respect. I don't think they'll get up the ladder, but they really are fun to watch for sure.
Well,
and
Well, two things about Washington State. Their non-conference schedule this year is bad. I don't believe they had a Power 5 team on their non-conference schedule, and neither did Oklahoma, which could really come back to bite them this year if it ends up being Big Ten champion against them versus who gets the final spot. You know, they don't have a win over Ohio State as a non-conference to hang their hat on this year. I think they had Army and FAU and someone else that wasn't very good. UCLA, so I guess they did have a Power 5 team, but, you know, UCLA is dreadful this year. Also, what's hurting Washington State, buddy, is their one loss is at USC, which until last week, Clay Helton had never lost a home game, but now that's a
no big deal.
Yeah, right,
for sure. And looking at the what's ahead, 6 Georgia plays Kentucky, so that's one spot that's somebody's going to come out from. 5 Michigan plays Ohio State. There's another one that got knocked down, and then 6 is going to wind up playing 9. I said that already. And then and Alabama will be favored.
One's playing 3.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and so, Alabama, of course.
That's why UCF, if they keep winning, buddy, you could see where they move up a spot a week.
Yeah, but not to the top 4. But not to the top 4.
No, it's very unlikely. Because it's difficult to see them being ranked ahead of a one-loss Power 5 team.
Yeah.
It is. So it's unlikely.
Yeah,
it is. But they can get close.
But look, who they're going to put up there? Fresno State? I mean, for crying out loud. You pretty soon you're out of teams. They keep losing, and these teams are going to lose, so they play each other. There's going to be some open spots in that top 10, top 12. And we hadn't even accounted for the fact there'll be some upsets.
Buddy, we better get used to this. If you think about it, particularly in the SEC, we better get used to this because a lot of schools in the last year or two have hired the right coaches and have made the financial investments, and we're going to have a ton of 2- and 3-loss teams going forward. I think college football is going to look a little more like the NFL in terms of very few unbeatens, and even struggling to get 12-1 is going to be really difficult. I think we're not far away from a 2-loss team in the playoff. I think we would have had it last. Auburn was a quarter away from it happening last year, and I thought Penn State deserved to get in 2016. I think we better get used to the fact that we're going to have a lot of losses, which is why UCF, it's not going to happen for them this year, but UCF, if they can get 6, they will start to make the case for when we have that year when we've got a couple of 2-loss teams that maybe we find some room for a group of 5 team. Yeah. Why not? The big boys have all beaten themselves up.
I think they could have reshuffled that conference and brought some new people in there a couple of years ago and strengthen that conference and help their case. They didn't do it. Could have done that, and that would have been good. That would have helped them. Anyway, all right. So we got plenty of football left to play. We've got games on Saturday. We know obviously the big one is going to be Alabama and LSU. And then what about Kentucky, Georgia? How's that going to play out?
Well, it is difficult for me to see Kentucky winning unless they just are +2 in turnovers and they get points from places that are not their offense, because clearly their offense has shown itself. They've had, 3 games since the bye, and they haven't scored worth a darn. Now, I know their only loss was at A&M, and they forced overtime in a game in which they literally didn't cross midfield. So Kentucky is clearly offensively challenged. So how can they score enough points to beat Georgia? And how can they get to, let's just say Kentucky's going to be better than Florida defensively because they got healthy corners and they're at home. So even if they hold Georgia in the 17-20 range, which would be a phenomenal effort, how in the world does Kentucky get to 20 or 21 without some help? So to me, this game is clearly in Georgia's hands. They're the better team. They've got more weapons. They've got to lose the game. They've got to turn it over, be sloppy, succumb to the pressure. Georgia has to lose this game in order for Kentucky to win. I don't think Kentucky can line up and beat Georgia. I just don't think they can. They don't have the offense to do it.
Well, all right, but you like it was 9.5-point underdogs?
Yeah, I would take the points.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
At being at home, I just don't see how they can score enough. That Kentucky offense against Florida, I'm trying to figure out where that offense is because we haven't seen it in 2 months.
Well,
So
they struggled, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or was that the Gators defense without Jefferson and without
good call, Reese.
33? Yeah,
Reese.
the couple of guys there that have come in, and that Florida defense has been completely different ever since they showed up. And I have a feeling that that's probably why Kentucky had the success on offense that they had.
And I think they're starting to believe in themselves a little bit, They pull some of these wins out, and I think they believe this could truly be their Cinderella season. And when a team starts believing that, things happen. Florida, Missouri. Florida's a 6-point favorite over Missouri. Drew Lock coming to town, a decimated secondary, although I understand that Florida will get C.J. Henderson back this week. That'll help some. Gators need this win to get back home and get things righted. How do you see it coming off?
Well, Missouri has been unable to win. What's their signature win? Had a chance at South Carolina, had a chance against Kentucky, although I thought the officials greatly helped Kentucky there. Well, and missing the offensive pass interference on the game-winning touchdown. I mean, how you call the one on the play before and don't call that? I mean, that was a.
I'm not too pleased with SEC officiating this year. I don't, I'm not an official. I don't quite complain about it, but I've seen some calls this year and non-calls that concern me in the SEC. Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry.
The Devin White targeting is very egregious and very egregious. That's staggering to me that they missed that badly. It really is. But I would have to take the Gators.
Take the Gators and lay in 6.
Yeah, I would. I definitely would. Missouri, and I love Drew Lock. I think he's a first-round pick, and I think he's going to play well on Sundays. But I would take the Gators this week.
All right, 2 more, let you go. And this is a game we thought before the season started would be a big one. It would be playing for the second-place position behind Alabama in the SEC West. Texas A&M at Auburn. Auburn 6-point favorites. That's a game that has lost its luster.
Yes, but Auburn showed a little something right at the moment, which we thought they were about to mail it in on Gus Malzahn last time out. So I have to believe that they had a few team meetings and were like, hey, we are not mailing this sucker in. No way, no how. So I think it'll be difficult. Auburn has not played well at home this year for whatever reason. But I like Auburn in a one-score game.
All right. And then finally, South Carolina at Ole Miss. South Carolina is a 1-point favorite.
Well, Ole Miss is dreadful. I know they got a quarterback and some receivers.
No defense. None. Zero defense.
No, none whatsoever. And South Carolina saved their season with a win against Missouri, and they pulled out the Tennessee game. Will's really good in one-score games at South Carolina. So I think it'll be a little awkward at times, but I'll take the Gamecocks.
David Moulton, who does so many jobs I can't even tell you which one it is. Miller and Moulton's his show in South Florida. He's off to the NFL soon to do that. He does college football, CBS.
Oh, buddy, I have a weekend that you might actually be jealous of me for.
Yeah?
Once, besides being in Baton Rouge on Sunday, I drive an hour south to New Orleans for the Rams and the Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll get to see Dante Fowler play. He just got traded today. Yeah.
Yeah. The epicenter of the football world is the state of Louisiana.
How about that? Yes, it is. It's a big one. Well, David, you have a good trip, my friend, and thanks for your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Buddy, great seeing you last weekend.
Great to see you, and I got to get that. Oh, I got that from you already, and we're good on that number. Thanks, David. Be safe.
Take care, buddy.
See you, buddy.
Will do.
All right, David Moulton, South Florida, always love. I want to just get this in here and tell you folks about a couple of things for I say good night to you. And one of them is I checked today with Tony from All Florida Sportswear on windbreakers. There's only one pullover at the point, but I'm going to let you get back to you on that. Meanwhile, it's still T-shirt weather, so stay tuned for all that, and I'll tell you more about how to get in touch. Support GNK. Thank you for that, Tony. We'll have more information on merchandise available to you through our friends there, and I'll tell you more about that later. Meanwhile, I want to tell you about the good food at Mark's Prime. I got a new steak up there tonight. Look at that. Isn't that something? Yeah, I would like to have one of those. On the left, there's a shrimp scampi dish I came across. I thought I'd make you hungry tonight and show you that in case you were not a beef eater. But look at that piece of meat right there. Whew, on the right. Mark's Prime Steakhouse. That's why I go there, for beautiful dishes like that. You should try it out. Mark's, of course, they love to give you a great dining experience, and they like to give you the best beef and best freshest seafood, premium wines, wonderful naturally fresh vegetables. They serve them all for you there. If you haven't been there, well, you're going for a really unique dining experience, you can go online and go to marksprimesteakhouse.com. If you need to make a reservation, I encourage you to do it early. You can call Ocala 352-402-0097 and Gainesville 352-336-0077. And they do have complimentary valet parking. By the way, as my wife and I were talking today about this, I said, I have a friend I really want to take to dinner and do something nice for. What should I do? He says, take him to Mark's. Right you are, Joan. That's a good thing to do. And I'll be doing that, and I'll be back here again soon. You should try it. Mark's Prime Steakhouse and Seafood. Okay, a final word. And I held this up to the end because I didn't want to create any difficulty or anything that would upset anybody tonight. I just wanted to say this, all right? As I look through this book tonight, I'm going to continue to read it to see what I can find, if there's anything about human compassion, okay? Not sure it'll be in this book, but Timmy is very spiritually based, and there's a possibility this is the day, it says here. And I posted this today as a test for those of you, and by the way, I'm not going to try and adjudicate the coaching life of Urban Meyer. That's up to you and him or whatever. But the story came out today that Urban has, as a lot of us knew, this arachnoid cyst, which he's had trouble with in the past. And I posted online just to see how people respond, and I put this in there. I hope we can put aside personal feelings and avoid the cheap shots about a man with a serious health problem, which some of us have known about for a long time. Personally, I will be praying for Urban and his family, but I realize others feel differently. Hoping for the high road here, but maybe it's just too much to ask. And so I'll say thank you. A few of you came through with some human compassion and put it above your personal bitterness or petty sniping. I wondered about others and if they would like to be judged the way they are judging someone like Urban when their day of accountability comes. And so I say, no wonder we're divided as a country, like we are, when some of us are so judgmental we can't see beyond our nose to look at a person's personal situation and the human condition and feel like, what if I were in that case? But I'll stop there, short of sermonizing, lest I be falling prey to the judgmental part of that myself, and just say, hope your mothers and your fathers taught you about the golden rule. Try as that may sound, it still counts. You have a good night tonight. Thank you for listening and watching. We're back tomorrow night. We'll have Edgar with us tomorrow night. Speaking of judgments, Edgar will be joining us, and much more to come our your way. So have a good evening, everybody.